Set within the Paddon Country Park, the Llanberis Lake Railway now provides a very scenic ride along the shores of Llyn Paddon. The original 4-foot gauge Paddon Railway was owned by Norwich Quarries, and this was finally closed in 1961. Since then, the Llanberis Lake Railway was formed, and the 2-foot narrow gauge was laid along the original track bed. Some of the original locos were purchased and restored, and the line was open to visitors by 1971. This line now runs along a 2-mile track from Gilfachdy to Penllyn, stopping off at the Caernarfon and picnic area en route. Of the 3 restored saddle tank engines still in service today are a Lydr, which is the oldest, built in 1889, then Thomas Bach, and Olbaden, which was built in 1922. Llanberis is also the starting point for the Snowdon Mountain Railway. The Snowdon Mountain Railway was first opened as a passenger service in 1896. It climbs 3,500 feet to the summit of Snowdon through some of the most spectacular scenery in Wales, to a total distance of 4.5 miles. Five of the original Swiss-built locos from 1895 are still in service today. This is a Witha. And Snowdon. And then there is Enid, Moyle Shabod and Ralph. And at peak times, these are supplemented with powerful diesels. The railway uses the Swiss-designed rack and pinion system, and a single track to the summit, with 3 passing places en route. Soon after leaving Llanberis station, the train starts its steep ascent over the Afon Hwch viaduct. Then on towards the first passing point, Hebron Station, closely followed by the halfway station. We're now at Llangollen, the 3rd passing point, and already 2,500 feet above sea level. The final section to the summit is the steepest, 1 in 5.5, with views of the Llangollen Pass 2,000 feet below us. For safety reasons, the engines push rather than pull the single carriage and descend under gravity. The carriage has its own separate braking system and is uncoupled for the whole of the journey. The engines are designed with forward sloping boilers, which would become almost horizontal on the average gradient of 1 in 8. The journey takes 1 hour to reach the summit of Snowdon, 3,560 feet above sea level. On a clear day, the views here are unrivalled. Below us are the twin lakes of Llyn and Lludau, and in the distance, Menai Straits and Anglesey. Well, it's up into the mountains now, to another slate mining community, Ffestiniog. Situated on the A470, under the shadow of the Llangollen mountain range, two of the larger slate mines, Coed and Llangollen, are now open to the public. Here the main line service terminates, and the narrow gauge line starts. The unusual double-ended locos were pioneered on the Ffestiniog Railway in the 1870s by engineer Robert Fairley. These proved to be immensely powerful, and several of the original locos are still in service. The latest of the line is David Lloyd George, and was built at Ffestiniog's Boston Lodge workshops as recently as 1990. The original Ffestiniog Railway Company was formed as early as 1836 to transport slate from the quarry to the port of Porthmadoc. This was initially horse-drawn until steam locos were introduced in 1863, and these ran until 1946. From the late 1950s, with a lot of help from volunteers, the line was reopened to passengers in 1982. The journey now takes 1 hour and is a total distance of 13.5 miles. Soon after leaving the station of Ffestiniog, the line passes the reservoir and power station of Llangollen, then on through the Welsh scenery to Llywelyn and Llangollen. We now start the gradual descent through Penryn and Minffordd and past the Boston Lodge workshops. The structure, known as the Cob, was built across the estuary of the River Llyn nearly 200 years ago, and it formed a natural harbour to the seaward side. The Cob now leads us into the harbour station of Porthmadoc. The historic town of Caernarfon stands at the southwestern end of the Menai Strait, at the mouth of the River Sayont. This is another popular tourist destination, with a picturesque quayside and maritime museum. The town is completely encircled by the castle walls. Caernarfon is dominated by the most impressive of all of the castles built by Edward I. Building work started here in 1283, and some 40 years later it was still not complete. The castle is now in the care of Cadw and is a World Heritage listed site. Caernarfon is the starting point for the Welsh Highland Railway. This railway began life as a passenger service back in 1878 as the North Wales narrow gauge. It took until 1923 to complete the line from Caernarfon to Porthmadoc, and then changed its name to the Welsh Highland. After a long complicated history, it was forced to close in 1936. Ambitious plans now to reopen this line began in 1997, when the first phase from Caernarfon to Dinas was opened. This is to be the greatest ever challenge for the Railway Preservation Society. At Dinas, the former engine sheds are now a small museum, and at present diesel power is used midweek, and it is steam-hauled at the weekends. By the summer of the year 2000, the next phase from Dinas to Winefawr was complete. At weekends, the Garrett-class steam loco is used. This is a fairly large engine for a 2-foot gauge, but it's certainly very powerful. A first-class Pullman coach also completes the scene.